Hey, so welcome
Hello, Bob.
everybody. It's me. I'm Bob. I'm here with my friend Sven, who's coming to us live from Berlin, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, from Berlin.
And welcome. So it's another deep dive. This week we're going to be talking about what I think could become the cinema of the future, and it's really about long form escape games in the VR space. And there's a lot happening in that space. And VR, escape rooms themselves have really exploded in the last 4 or 5 years, and now a lot of them are moving into VR experiences. And Sven's one of the pioneers in that space. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
And so tell us a little bit about let's start with your background. How did you wind up here?
Okay, my personal background is it's coming from filmmaking. I'm a film director. I worked in the film industry for a lot of years. I worked in post-production, directing, camera work, editing, and a couple of other things. And for me, my hobby was gaming. So I always played games, but I worked for the linear film and industry, and there was not really a connection between both of them. Yeah, the film industry didn't want to look for the gaming industry, and vice versa. And then I found out, okay, I want to explore a little bit more interactive movies or interactive experiences, and we worked with Kinect and some, like now we have Bandersnatch on Netflix or something, and actually we did some similar a couple of years ago, but there was no big buzz about it, because if it's interactive you can show it in the cinema, so the film industry is not interested. And now with streaming services and everything else, it is much more possible to do interactive storytelling also for the film industry. But then there was the VR coming up. There was like the DK1. There was the first meetup here in Berlin, and I went there and I put on the VR glasses, and I remember my every first demo was a 360-degree video of a drone, and you put on the glasses, you jump in the air, and then you fly in the air, and it was really amazing. Of course, it was quite easy, but the first time to have this feeling to be completely immersed and completely surrounded by the pictures was a great thing. And then there was a lot of buzz about what will be VR. There was in the beginning a lot of 360 video content happening, and I always felt, okay, 360 video is not really VR. It's not really powerful. It doesn't add something. It takes away a lot of your tools. It takes away the editing, the work for the camera. So you lose a lot of strategies to tell a story, but you didn't get much more. Yeah, you get this first feeling about, oh, it's so cool, but then
that novelty wears off as the viewer really quickly, right? In a long form experience, yeah.
And then what it adds, it's interactivity. So the first time, what we did, for example, we did a research project for the ZDF Heute journal, which is the biggest broadcaster here in Europe. And we connected the DK2 together with 4 Kinects. So we built a room with 4 Kinects. You can walk inside the room.
So you built an early free roam system.
The very early end, we made a photo of you, so you can walk around yourself. You can see actually your back.
That's cool.
And it was the interactivity, it was the movement in the space that made me amazed. And then we got the first demo version of the Vive, and we had hands. And that was a completely changing the ball game. It was like, okay, I'm not a visitor anymore. I'm not a viewer anymore. I'm a real visitor of this place. I can interact with this place. I can destroy something. I can take a glass, drink something. I can do stuff. And from that on, we we got into this development of virtual reality experiences.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you talk about 360 video and how, and maybe, it's natural for us anytime there's a new technology comes along, we try to, we apply as much of the old, what we know paradigm into the new technology. And I guess that's just a natural way of doing it. But it was so obvious to me, and it sounds like to you, that there was no value add at all. And it just seemed to take away a lot. And, and without the cues of having to the director to be able to know where to put things, and then the consumer the viewer actually has to like figure it out, like where am I supposed to be looking, and what happens is you wind up as a viewer in your head. And and if you're thinking, you're not suspending disbelief, right? And it was really interesting. I just had a similar experience in a big block. So I went and saw Avengers Endgame. Have you seen it yet?
Yeah, I saw.
I went to see Avengers Endgame, biggest movie of all time, just past Cameron's Titanic, and I'm sure it's going to eclipse Avatar here soon. And but I was sitting in the movie theater, and there was no context setting, right? So they just assumed that everybody knew all the characters and all the backstory. And I'd watched all the movies with the exception of Captain Marvel, which wasn't yet available for rental, right? And I hadn't gotten to the theater to see it. So I was like, what the fuck is she doing here? And where is she coming in with this Deus Ex Machina, save the day and leave, like Mighty Mouse? And then there were all of these other kind of bit part characters from the other movies that came in that I didn't remember who they were. And I spent the whole time trying to figure out who the fuck these people were. And that really, at the end, I was like, why didn't I enjoy that movie? And I realized it was because I was in my head the whole time. And I think 360 video does the same thing for different reasons with people, is because you just don't know what to do. So you're thinking, am I supposed to look here? And that's why I like some of the motorized chairs, like the Positron Voyager, I'm a fan of, because it gives the director, like you, the power to make sure that the person doesn't have to think. They just look where you want them looking. But that gets really expensive. So, yeah, I think 360 video, do you think is it going to be a thing? Is it ever going to be a thing? Or do you think it's just a fad and it's just going to go away?
That's a good question. It will always be there if it comes to maybe big installation. I think if you want to watch like 100 people watch the same content, then it could be cool as an installation. We have really nice shows at the planetarium here in Berlin. I think there was always more or less 360 content, and there will be always 360 content.
But doesn't it make sense to just do it on a dome? Like, why bother doing it in VR? It just seems
on a dome. That's what I mean, like a planetarium or a dome or something. That will always stay. In VR, I'm not sure. I have the feeling we don't know. Some people say 180-degree video could be something. Actually, when I watched Endgame, and it was a very nice experience for me because I think I watched around half of the movies from the universe, Marvel, and the other half I didn't watch. So it was really quite interesting to watch this movie, which was absolutely made for people who are fanboys or know every moment before. And but I thought that is also in a way VR, and if they would get the screen a little bit bigger around, they would do it. Yeah, they would try to get the screen, but they would never want that I look away.
Yeah,
because they put all the budget, all those things at the central, and so I'm not sure about 360 video. It's not the future. It is like dome projection of really cool stuff, but much more for installation and art. And,
So let's talk about the interactive stuff a bit before we get into Huxley and what you guys are doing. So you mentioned Bandersnatch, which I think is was a bit of a breakthrough for interactive video. So I don't know if you know this, like back in the 80s, early 90s, when I was in Denver. There was a company called United Artists, which was a big movie production company. They were also one of the biggest movie theater exhibition companies in America, and they had, I don't know how many thousand theaters or whatever. And they did an experiment in Denver, which is where their headquarters was, with an interactive movie in the theaters where you had a joystick and the crowd would push buttons to try to. So it was basically like Bandersnatch on the big screen, and it just never took off. Like nobody liked it. It was widely panned, and it could have been the story, it could have been the creative, it could have been the technology, it could have been a lot of things. It could have been like the mindset of the consumer wasn't quite in interactive mode yet. Like we weren't used to being in control of everything. It was before the big console video games came out with big storytelling games and sagas. But what did you think of what do you think of Bandersnatch? Are we going to see more of that? Did you think it was well done? And how is that going to impact the future of storytelling?
I think we will see a little bit more of that, and I hope. Yeah, it actually Bandersnatch was not the first one. There's also, I think, a interactive movie on Steam, and then there's one on PlayStation, and I think I read something because I studied film history. Really early days, and I think they started in the 60s or something.
Yeah, it's been around forever, but Bandersnatch is the first one to actually cross over into the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah, it was the first one that got a lot of reviews in magazine and by journalists, and I think that is one way. And it is cool for the film industry because you can watch it again and you can talk about it, because to see different things, I think that is nowadays very important, that people have different experiences so they can later have an exchange about their personal experience.
Yeah.
But still, it is very limited. We all know that you have this tree about where are the decisions tree, and
I think one of the things
the time it's get back to the same result.
I think one of the things they did, which was really cool, which will be interesting to see if they can replicate it, is the meta story was based on the interactivity, right? So there was it was almost like a fractal storytelling, which is hard to pull off, and it's hard to build an industry around that. I feel like, part of the appeal of it is the story was tied into the interactivity, and they said they're going to do 4 or 5 more, and they're really expensive. So Netflix did. So we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I think it's just exciting times now for all of this experimentation with these platforms that have massive audiences that enable content makers to experiment and try different things. And so what led you to talk about Huxley? Where did the idea for Huxley come from? Why did you make it an escape game, or at least position it in that escape room market segment? What was your thinking there? How did that happen?
It's funny. So the first time I heard about escape games is, I think, 5 years ago in China, because I wanted to meet a guy and he told me, no, I can't go. I booked an escape game and I already played. I have to go there with my friends. And I was like, what is an escape game? I never heard about it. And then I didn't play it, but actually later on we were always looking for a business solution for VR, and it was still the time of the DK2, so it was not sure about how many Vive and Oculus will sell to the home market, but I was very skeptical. I know a lot of people got crazy and say, oh, they will sell millions, but we all know there's a problem of hardware, space, and everything. And I was very skeptical. So there was always the idea, okay, location-based is maybe a much more interesting market. Yeah, and then we got a contact with an escape game company. And then I was looking more into escape games, and I found out, okay, it is a form of, it is always difficult to nail group events that are interactive.
Yeah.
Like cinema is very easy. You can put 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people for one screen in the front, one movie, and everybody is happy and good is. But interactivity is much more personalized. So, for example, in the 80s, we had the arcades where people went and they played their games. But nowadays, most gaming happens at home, really alone. People, they play together, maybe multiplayer games, but physically they mostly stay alone.
Yeah.
And Escape game was so interesting because it is multiplayer, it is a group event, and it has this sort of interactivity. And also it has a length mostly of 1 hour, what is a little bit, it could feel like a blockbuster movie and not a short experience. It's not, and it is not like laser tagging where you would just run around and shoot. It's much more like sports laser tagging, and it doesn't feel like visiting a cinema or something. And nowadays escape rooms are getting very immersive. With like actually they are film sets. Yeah, most of them really built like film sets, so you can't really feel. The only thing that is different is mostly your clothes are not really fitting into the story.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's like a role-playing game. But role-playing games like LARPs, they are so nerdy that you need one full weekend to go there, and you need the clothes, and you need friends there, and it's not accessible for the normal.
Yeah.
For normal people. So I think escape games are a little bit like mini LARPs for people who don't want to go the full road and dress and buy stuff and everything. And yeah, then we thought, okay, that is, and the biggest problem of escape games are that they are physically. So if you build one room, it is very difficult and expensive to change the room. And you can't bring characters really inside. I know there are some escape games with actors.
Yeah. So have you seen any of those successful, and what's the impact on that on the economics has got to be severe, right? Do they charge more? What's happening with that? Like having live actors in an escape game?
I played 2 in Vegas. I played the Saw.
Okay.
Which has 1 actor, and I played the Basement, which also has 1 actor. But I didn't have the feeling that it added so much to the whole experience. Yeah. I visit a lot of, we can maybe later talk a little bit more about immersive theater, which for me is another very interesting topic.
Yeah.
And something I explore a lot. There, often the actors really had an impact, and if it's made really good, then it could be really strong. But then in immersive theater, I think the last time I paid $150 or something.
And there's hundreds of people in. Which one did you do?
I did it. It was Cabaret Bizarre or something.
Okay.
It was in LA.
Yep.
It was like a hotel, and it was like a really cool experience because they had small groups and they had a lot of actors, and there was like a one-to-one acting thing. Yeah? So half of the play I played with one person. So you really had a one-to-one experience. It's a mess financially. Of course, it's really expensive, and also the tickets are expensive. And I think escape games are a little bit between it. And yes,
I'm on a webinar, dude. Please, I can't. Sorry, somebody just walked into my apartment.
No problem. Of course, VR could be one of the missing links there to bring this multi experiences with characters that are not done by by actors and
Yeah.
live, which is we all know very expensive thing, and it's much more like a musical ticket or something.
Yeah.
Cinema ticket.
I did one in New York. It's called Sleep No More.
I also went to Sleep No More.
In this big. They renovated a couple of big buildings in Manhattan, and they turned it into a hotel. And I found it. I found it really interesting. Like the crowd was really engaged, and different people had different levels of engagement. But there were hundreds of people in there, and dozens of actors. Like it was a full-on production. Like it's another level, but super popular, hard to get tickets, and it's been running for a couple of years now. So I'm guessing it's popular. And then you have like these interactive art installations, like Meow Wolf, which is kind of part performance theater and part art installation. And so the all of these industries moving, every single out-of-home entertainment sector seems to be moving more interactive and more immersive, whether it's restaurants with projection mapping on dining, or museums with augmented reality attractions, or interactive theater, or now escape games, and how is that going to emerge? And so let's talk about so you saw this opportunity, you were enamored with VR, it sounds like you wanted to do something and tell stories in it. You saw an escape room, there's a possible medium for that. How did Huxley come about? And then we'll get in, and we'll show the trailer of the original Huxley, and we'll talk about
we teamed up with we built a joint venture with an escape game company, and then we started to developing Huxley as an adventure game. So from the first on, I think escape game nowadays is a synonym for multiplayer live action adventure games, because most of the games are not about escaping anymore, and it is more about some people go to a place and have a nice adventure, and they solve some puzzles, and they have a story, and they have fun, and that's we have something together, we developed ideas, and
Let me ask about that, because there in every market there's segments, and right, so there seems to be a hardcore player segment that are all about the puzzles, and that's why they play. And then is there a broader market though that really is just looking at this as casual entertainment, and it's date night or game night or whatever, and they're just going out for something fun to do, and it's more about the adventure and the social interaction than it is the puzzles? And if so, what's the breakdown of the market? Do you have a sense for that, like how it?
I can't say a number of the breakdown, but the hardcore escape game puzzle people, they do it a little bit like a sport. They want to solve the puzzles, the rooms, in a very short time.
Yeah.
It's a very small amount of people play escape games, and but they allowed. So if you read about escape games, you mostly read from this hardcore group, because they have the blogs, they posting which are the best rooms, and that's why they are so strong in the focus. But in reality, most people who play escape games just want to have a nice time with their friends, want to have an adventure, want to do something else, are bored by going to the cinema, and are doing team events, are companies. There are a lot of escape gamers, they didn't know what they signed for, because they got signed by their friends, because it's like something.
And look, and people talk about, in the cinema industry, they talk about it being a social event, but it's not. Like, you're going into a dark room and you're sitting there, and you have to, and if you talk, right, people yell at you and or shush you, and so you're basically sitting there for 2 hours where you're not allowed to talk, you're not allowed to interact with your friends, and it's really a shared experience, but it's a whole bunch of people sharing a one-person experience. And the thing that I love about the promise of adventure games, escape games, is you have to interact with the people you're there with. So it's truly a curated social experience, which seems to be what people really crave deep down. And I think that that's why these games have been so popular. and there's so much opportunity in this space. Like, so when you created Huxley, the first game, you know, how much of that in your mind was, well, how did you deal with the balance between puzzles and story and character development and social interaction as the creator? How did you balance all of that?
So yeah, during the development of Huxley 1, we starting with creating a story and a world. So actually first we choose a little bit a genre, like you normally do in movies too. At one point you decide I make a comedy or I make a science fiction movie.
Yep.
And then we developed the story.
So what genre would you consider this from a filmmaker's perspective?
It is a little bit science fiction adventure story.
Yep. Okay.
And we started there, and then and then on the at the same time, parallel, we were just asking us what could be cool to do in VR. What do we really want to do in VR? What could be cool experiences, and what can we do in VR that is not possible in a real escape room? Yeah? And then we decided, okay, we want to bring a character in. But knowing how much work it is, we also said, okay, this character has not, I would say, not much screen time, because you need to animate him and to do all the work around. And then we did prototyping and playtesting. We let people play the game. It was a very easy graphic, just blocks. And we looked up which the people like, what they don't like. And actually in this beginning, when we developed Huxley 1, it was we didn't know how long the experience would be. We didn't know how long can we go. There was like hundreds of people were saying that you can't do more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like everybody who was saying VR is nothing, you can do more than 15 minutes or something. Yeah? So what we did our prototyping, and at one point we had like our prototype where you can play a lot of puzzles, and the people needed around 1.5 hours to solve it. And they didn't get bored. They say, oh, it was cool. They say,
so you went an hour and you went 90 minutes in the prototype.
90 minutes.
And people were cool with that.
They say, when we asked them how long they stayed in VR, they said around 45 minutes.
Wow.
And we talk about the block graphics. We didn't talk about finished words or graphics or anything.
Yeah.
We talk about very, very simple graphics, very simple interaction, and everything with, at this time, no backpack. We know because we did the prototype, so we already had this. I think we didn't have backpacks at this time, so we tethered computers, and that was very interesting for us.
Yeah, and look, and it makes sense because look, the whole power of VR is immersion, and the longer you're in it, the deeper your immersion, right? And so, so it only makes it's common sense actually that longer experiences are going to be more compelling and more satisfying to the consumer. Yeah. But I don't know why people are just so focused on these short, intense experiences. So I'm glad you guys are changing that. So how did you settle on the ultimate length of the first one? And I want to show the trailer here in a second too. The first one. Yeah. How long was the first game, and how did you settle on that timeline?
Okay. Then we said, okay, 1.5 hours, 90 minutes. It's too long because at the end you have your business case and you have to calculate for your ticket prices, and then you have to say, okay, what I want to do, and then we decided, okay, because Exit always, the normal games have 66 minutes, we said, okay, 44 minutes is the time, and but we added the tutorial and the end scene, so it's around 50 minutes, and I think it's a very good time. It's from the business case, it is a very good time.
Yeah.
And also from the people have the experience that it's a completely full experience. It's not that they go out and say, okay, so that was a starter, but what happens now?
Yeah, so I've got a video queued up here, which was actually from Laval, which shows the oh, who's that? I want to just show it, but there's some really good gameplay video in here. I thought I would grab and
yeah, that is something. Okay, you have a different video.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. So this is these are some interior shots. You're talking about the Game Master, but there's actually some gameplay video in here coming up.
Color puzzles, or you have to just think about how to get the mirrors into the right corner, and then shrink during the game, and go through Huxley's body into his brain, and help to free his mind.
And so you can see, like, the environments are super cinematic and you know, really rich, and I thought the environments were fascinating and kind of like that, you know, steampunk dystopian future art style, which was really good. And I played this in Berlin when I was there in February with Joanna Popper from HP. And hi, Joanna, in case you're watching. And we did actually save the world. But there's Huxley. There he is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one cutscene of around 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, so out of 45 minutes, he's about 1.5 minutes, and we'll talk about if he's a bigger star in the second movie. But I just want to, yeah. So you can see it's just a beautiful environment. And anyway, so there we go. So I just wanted to kind of show some video of the environment of the old game, and so like you said, it was 1.5 minutes of the character. And how did that? Now we talked about that in Berlin. Like some of that was just budgetary. Like animating that and doing the story is really expensive. Like, and how much of that is gonna drive like the economics of the business still being kind of nascent, right? I mean, how many locations are you in now with Huxley?
We have now 25 locations. I have a list here. At least it's 25, but not all are open. So open is around 2/3 of the 25, and the rest will open.
How many? And so, as a content developer, what's that like? There's a bit of a network effect, right? And so you got to have enough locations to drive enough consumers to generate enough revenue to build good content, and these early stage forays into content development are somewhat experimental, so the costs are necessarily going to be a little bit higher because you're not sure what to do and what not to do. And so at what point, you've been doing this a long time now, you've been thinking about it, how big does that installed base need to be for you to confidently be able to invest enough to realize the vision in your mind's eye into that experience? Are you there yet? Does it have to be 100? Does it need to be 1,000? Like, when are you going to be able to say, I know I'm going to spend X dollars to take my vision to the market, and I'm confident we're going to get our money back?
Actually, you can do it. If you calculate it, you can do it with one location, but then you didn't have much money to spend on your content.
Well, but that's my point about executing your vision as a creative. You have a vision of what the ultimate experience is. To deliver the ultimate experience in your mind, when's that going to happen?
That is you talked about Endgame, huh? So if you want to do Endgame for I think 250 million or something, then you need a lot of locations.
Yeah.
So that's what at the moment I think one of the biggest steps is, and the biggest problems, but also maybe the biggest possibilities is, of course, you can't create an endgame in VR at the moment. Because maybe technically it's possible, but it doesn't make sense. You will never get your money back.
Yeah.
That is something. So what we do is much more, I think in America you would call it low budget movies, Yeah, you have to think more as a low budget movie maker. You have to think about it. Okay, maybe genre movie. I know some people who do. You have this. They do this genre horror movies. Yeah, and they absolutely know how much they can spend for it to sell it. It's direct to DVD.
Yeah,
and then they often cheat it, like they spend all the budget on the last 10 minutes, and in the front they have a lot of talking sequences, and they are not so expensive.
But that's part of the creator's vision, right? I'm saying, so if your vision is to build Endgame, you're a long ways off, but my guess is your vision initially or even today isn't actually to build Endgame. There's, is Huxley 2 the actual, is that, do you feel confident that that's the pinnacle, not the pinnacle, but the pinnacle of your vision for what's possible today? Or do you still think there's more that you want to do that you just couldn't economically do right now because it's 25 locations going to 50 or 100, and when you have 250 locations going to 1,000, like what's that going to look like from your perspective?
I think as a creator visions, I always compare that we are in the beginning. We are like the Guido Lumiere or something. Yeah. Actually, what we do is research. Of course, we are not at the pinnacle, and hopefully not. That would be bad if we didn't have the chance in the next 30, 40 years to evolve this new medium to a completely really new thing. It would be. Then VR would be dead.
Yeah.
If we reach now the point. So what we do is we do small steps. So Huxley 1, we had this 1.5 minute cutscene, and in Huxley 2, the character is the whole game with us. Yeah?
Awesome. So it's much more character driven and much more story driven in the second one.
It's much more story driven and character driven, and we're still optimizing it, and it's still very, very difficult thing because game and story driven and multiplayer is something that normally is not. There's so much research to do how it could work, because if you look at the gaming industry, you have story-driven games are always single-player games.
Yep.
Multiplayer games are always competitive games. So there are some reasons why it is, and that's why escape games are so interesting, because they are multiplayer, team-based, but it's also competitive about the puzzles all the time, and they are story-driven. They are something that I say the normal gaming industry didn't find out to develop. And I hope that VR is not the medium for one genre. It would be really sad if VR would be only used for maybe esports and competitive games and not for story-driven games, or only for single-player experience but not multiplayer. So I hope that we can come to the point where we have this where we find the perfect balance between story, gameplay, multiplayer, single player, and this kind of stuff. And I would say we did a lot in Huxley 2. So we did a lot with the graphics. The graphics looks much better than the first game, but I still think the first game is it's still very amazing.
Yeah.
And we developed a lot with motion capturing system to get more animation into it, more story-driven game. And but we already talked, I think, in Vegas a little bit about it. The next step would be to have intelligent characters, because still our characters are very stupid, and that's what the next big step would be. But it will not be solved in the next game we develop, because this is I think a bigger topic. And
there's a lot of core technology that has to really be developed and perfected to be able to do that. And so Huxley was a 44-minute game. How long did it take you to produce it? And can you talk about the production budget of that compared to Huxley 2? Like how long did it take? How big a project was it for Huxley 1? Let's just start there.
So Huxley 1 we developed really fast and really concentrated in 6 months.
Okay. And how big was your team?
Around 15 people.
Wow. Okay. And then Huxley 2, like how long have you been?
2 we developed now, it's more like 1 year, but not all the time the whole team was working on it. So it was more like a little bit longer process. We had to try out, we had to, like I told, with the motion capturing, we had to develop some core technology before we can start. Yes, we changed from Unity to Unreal for the second game, which was also a big step for us.
A lot more overhead with that one, yep.
And so that was so the budget at the end of Huxley 2 was a little bit bigger than the first one, but at the end it's we in the first one we wanted to become out. So there was that for our first game the topic was we want to be the first, we want to be fast, we want to be on the market. And for the second, we are much more focused on testing out stuff, our quality, on getting some, having a little bit more time and make it more adventurous. I don't know if you feel, a lot of people tell me that Huxley 1 reminds them of Myst. Myst, the game. And I know why it is, because it's so empty.
Yeah.
And because Myst was a very amazing game at this time, but it was not full of characters. It was what was possible technology-wise at this time. And it feels a little bit empty. And also Huxley 1 is very amazing, but there are not hundreds of animations inside. And in Huxley 2, we wanted to go more in this direction of, I would call it, PlayStation game, Uncharted. And much more in this action adventure Uncharted way.
And look, but you know, Myst was an exploration game, and right, and so it had that kind of ambiance, and I think that with Huxley 1, like you were really focused on solving the problem in front of you, and so I'm not sure I felt like, oh, there should be more characters, because I was too busy trying to figure out, you know, where to put the green module and the red module and how to turn the handle. And so now that could just be me, because puzzles just drive me crazy, and I get really frustrated with them. And thank God Joanna was there to help me solve them. Look, before we get into some of the questions, a bunch of questions queuing up. I want to get to, but now I just forgot my question. So so we'll come back to that hopefully. So just some people are asking about the size, the pragmatic pieces of the experience. How many people play? What's the space needed? You know, what's happening with with your hardware set? Talk a little bit about the physical aspects of the product.
Okay, the physical aspect is it's the game is for 2 to 4 people, so 2, 3, and 4 people can play in one game. Of course, you can run multiple games at your location. We used in the beginning backpack PCs with the Vive. Now we use a lot of Vive wireless solutions.
Which I think, Rob, is where you're getting the headset about the weight. I think the Vive wireless just adds some weight to the headset.
But also it's a lot of weight.
Yep.
It's
a trade-off. You wear a backpack and you get hot. You have a headset, it's a little heavy. Like eventually all that shit's going to go away.
Everything is a trade-off.
Yep.
There's not the perfect solution. There's not the perfect headset. There's not the perfect tracking system. And everything is a trade-off. And size-wise, we need for 2 players 15 square meters.
So 150 square feet. Okay.
And a little bit space for the game master, and the games are driven by game master.
And so 4 players would be 30 square meters basically. So roughly 8 by 8 feet. So a Vive room scale setup, a little bit smaller maybe.
And that is the thing.
And to the four, now you have two people playing in one space and another two in another space.
Yeah.
You bring them together in the virtual space, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So,
but also now Huxley 2, you can also play with 4 people in one space.
Cool.
But we don't do it because then at the moment, you need then to mix the backpacks with the wireless system, or you have only at the moment the hardware is very difficult to find the perfect hardware for this solution.
One of the challenges with wireless is right now there's only 3 channels available. So if you have a 4-player attraction, somebody has to wear a backpack, and so that you get a mix of 3 people with wireless and 1 with a backpack. And creates a little bit of operational complexity, but it doesn't seem to be that big a challenge for you guys. You've been doing it for a while. Does it work?
You will have your challenge with the operation, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the wireless system is not always super stable. It has some problems sometimes, and it is a pity with the wireless system that it's only for 3 people, because nobody wants to. This is the least what players play. We have most 2 and 4 players games, not 3 players.
Yeah, I think Y Dreams they had their arcade game on wireless, and they made a 3-player game because that's all they could do, and it is a weird number. I totally agree with that. So
it's not a good number. It's not what, because there are so many couples and so many.
Yeah. So let's show the Huxley 2 trailer, and let's start talking about Huxley 2. So this is a world premiere, guys.
Yeah, finished yesterday night.
And so, boy, that's fantastic. And I love the music selection. It kind of reminds me of BioShock a little bit. It's got that.
Actually, the music is from the game. It's also inside the game. And now the soundtrack is done by our musician.
In-house. Awesome.
In-house.
Yeah, and Paul, the communication between the players, I would say, is actually a requirement. You can't solve the puzzles unless you're communicating. At least that's the way it is in the first game. So what are so beyond character driven and more interacting with the primary character and more story driven, what are the other changes that you learned from the first game that you brought into the second game?
The changes we learned, I think we learned that people. So there is one thing in escape games, and this is then when you enter a new room, and it's mostly the coolest moment. And I think it's the same for VR escape games. What we learned is, but we did it also for Huxley 1 because we didn't learn it, but it is what we know for sure at the moment is that people really love it to have different kinds of settings, go from one setting to the other. And of course, it makes it more complicated and more expensive. More expensive, but that is what the people really want. And they want to have fun. So, unfortunately, at the moment, drama is not a genre for VR multiplayer location games. I'm really looking forward what will happen in the future because I think a medium needs to be able to have every genre in it.
It's really interesting you say that. The guy I'd mentioned before. There's a group in maybe not in this webinar. There's a group out of Russia called Hyperverse that had had developed their own inside-out tracking system before all the major manufacturers went inside out. And they created a game called Insomnia. Charlie Fink wrote a review on Forbes about it, and it was fucking dramatic as hell, man. It was like there was a suicide, and it was like, and the guy's daughter was there, and it was like a Disney, in my mind, Walt Disney would have, like, you know, because he used to love to fuck with kids, especially, and there was a scene in it, you know, spoiler, where, you know, you're the dad, or you're watching the dad, and the daughter sees the wife commit suicide because she's got this disease that can't be cured, and he's a doctor and he's trying to cure her. Like, it was like super dramatic and really compelling, but it was also a fun game, and there were puzzles, and you had to shoot demons and stuff. And so, like, I don't know how popular it would be. And I had a couple of amusement operators went and did it, and they were like, fuck, that was amazing, but there's no way I'm going to have that in my location. So, maybe you're right. Maybe there's no place in drama yet, but I think...
No, not yet, but I hope so. I hope in the future, because otherwise it's a pity. That's always, also in the gaming industry, for a long time, it was a problem that serious content was not the thing to go, and that it's a medium not really grown up. So I hope the future, but for the moment, it's about fun, it's about adventure, it's about graphics. The first thing you learn is, if you do gaming, is everything is about graphics. Of course, it's everything about gameplay, but in a way, graphics are very important for people. And it is about the feeling that they come out, and they had the feeling about, okay, I had a very, very big emotional experience. And what I learned is Huxley 1 was much easier to satisfy the people, because VR was so new, and it's getting hard now with second games and third games, and in 2 years we will talk about more and more about the content and less about what can we do with VR.
So let's talk about that, because that's a really interesting point, is that, you know, our people, and I think Tommy Goodkin last week from VR World talked about this, where, you know, what they've learned over now almost 2 years is that in the first year it was just people trying to come to do VR, and now what they're doing is they're really coming to experience it with their friends and looking for social experiences. And so what's your learning been there? Like, if 2 years ago 100% of the people had never done VR before, like, what percentage of the people now have actually experienced VR and are coming with a certain level of expectation? Do you have a sense for that yet?
No, at our location, of course, much. A lot of people already played Huxley 1.
Yeah.
But I think that would be not this thing in the middle, but also in your mentoring group, more and more I read about people who say, I want to go to VR arcades, but the games get boring to me.
Yeah.
It's not really that they say VR is boring or something. And also my personal thing is, I don't have really a favorite VR game at home. Yeah. And I'm missing my Uncharted, and I'm missing my GTA. And of course, we talk about budgets. Yeah, I'm missing this
chicken and an egg, right?
Budget things that are really good, that a lot of people work on it, that are polished, and that they are this crazy experience that could be possible in VR, but at the moment not happening.
Yeah, well, hopefully Quest will, you know, start breathing some air in the sails, and they'll sell 4 or 5 million units, and that'll help. So we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So as far as one of the questions from Rob is around the, you know, replay value. This is one of the challenges of the escape room business, is there's zero replay value. Like, once you've solved the puzzle, you're never going to do it again, for all likelihood. What about your games and VR in general? Like, what's your thought around, is there replay value to it beyond just the spectacle and wanting to bring your friends and share it with your friends? Is there a core reason to play it again? And how do you think about that?
I think a lot about this topic, for sure. And for example, we now developing a replayable game, which is not an adventure game. It is more like a competition game, replayable. It's more fun. So, I always thought about it. Maybe we can integrate different puzzles or different gameplays in the same adventure. But at the end, maybe I believe a little bit that our different people go there.
Yeah.
And an adventure is not different only because there are new puzzles. An adventure is different because there are new scenes, because there's new adventure, there's like completely new words. So adventure games for me is much more about traveling. And if I travel, okay, I can travel to the same city again. I can travel to Paris again.
What about branch storylines? Like go back to the Bandersnatch thing, right? I mean, if you're investing so much in narrative and so much in environments and character animations, can you leverage that? And let's say a game costs $1 million to develop. Could you add, some branch storylines based on how the puzzles get solved or not, to where there's a reason to play it back 2 or 3 times? And would that double the cost, or maybe can you do that for 20 or 30%, or do we just not know until somebody tries to do it?
I think that would be possible, yes. But that is at the end is nothing else that you make not a 1 hour game, you make a 2 hour game, and from the beginning on you make a 2 hour game and you let them play the 1 hour, and you make sure that they can come back and experience the second hour.
Yeah.
But at the end, you make a 2 hour game. That is, it doesn't change so much. Yes, you can add different storylines. Then you can replay it for sure. But then you have also to produce the content for sure.
Yeah. How much of in the development? How hard are the puzzles to develop? Like, because you talked about maybe having different puzzles within the same game. How many puzzles are there in Huxley 2? Roughly.
Rough 6, 7,
okay.
8, something. Okay. And developing puzzles puzzles are a very interesting thing. It is very difficult to develop a puzzle that everybody likes. Well, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And also, it is impossible really to develop a puzzle that is hard enough for everyone, but for no one too hard. At the end, you talked in the beginning about this hardcore puzzle people.
Yeah.
I think for them you need very, very difficult puzzles, and most of other people would hate it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they want to get this mind thing. And we also find out that VR at the moment, our customers are not and it is not so focused on this puzzling in escape game like escape gaming. It is more wider. The audience is more wider. It is more about the experience, the adventure. There are more people coming to us. They want to have. They are attending more like theater or something, and so it is a quite step to satisfy everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did now, we added a puzzle which is like generated, changed during. So our puzzle looks at how good you are in solving it, and then it gives you different difficulties.
And that's done automatically, so the game master doesn't have to be as big a part of it. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
How hard was that to pull off?
What? The game master?
No, because I think what you said this in Vegas, that the goal was to make the puzzle clues more automated. I think that's what you just said, right?
Yeah, we're still working on it. We still need the game masters, it's for sure. But on a long term, I think it's always the idea to solve these problems with algorithms and strategies inside the game. But this is we have good things in escape games, I think, and this is one of the problems of escape games. It is heavily based on the game master.
Yeah.
I played, for example, in Vegas, the basement, and it was a really bad experience because I was there with Cyril from Ubisoft, and at one point we didn't know where to go, and we asked for the game masters, and they didn't give us hints or answered anything.
Wow. Yeah.
And again, we had a bad experience, and then later we asked them, and I had the feeling they didn't follow our game. They did some maybe filling up the ice machine or something, and they let us play, and we were stuck. It was like we didn't know what to do. We could just sit on the floor and do nothing. And
look, the number one thing that impacts customer satisfaction at any entertainment facility is the quality of the engagement of the staff. And so there's another example of that. And I found, I was surprised. I always thought the ideal would be if the game master never had to say anything. That would be the ultimate game experience. And what I found from listening to players, is that they love when the game master adds personality into the game, and it makes it more enriched for them. And I was shocked. I was surprised. I didn't expect to hear that feedback, but overwhelmingly, that's what I've heard from players, is they love when a game master is interacting with them and making it more personal.
Yes, it is true. And also, yes, we of course we want. I personally, I really want to do a game where I have a game master in motion capturing suits, and he's inside the game and he's part of it and he can interact with everyone. That would be cool.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
But the FEC business, they don't want to hire actors.
Yeah.
It is a trade-off. It is a trade-off. Of course, you can make cooler experiences in VR. But ticket prices will rising, some business possibilities will not be there, and quality management is really, really difficult. I had a talk at Breda 2 years ago. It is a escape game conference with a guy who is doing the dungeon, like the stuff for the dungeon.
Yeah.
They have so much problems to get the quality always in the same level.
Yeah. Look, it's a huge problem. So where are you? And so so when you look at your market now, where is this thing showing up? Is it showing up mostly in escape rooms? Is it showing up in arcades, family entertainment centers? Like, where are you selling Huxley? Where is it showing up in the world?
It is. So in the beginning, it was a lot of standalone things. More now, it's getting more and more into an add-on on an already business, and that business could be escape room, could be laser tag or bowling center, could be FECs in the future. I think the FECs at the moment, they are a little bit more on this hardware thing.
They want a turnkey solution, absolutely.
Turnkey solution. We develop at the moment, we have a little bit like a turnkey solution. But it is something we always have to find out. It is a growing market. More and more people get interested, and you have to look from every side on the market. And the customers, they asked for and that's true. The customers ask for really good content. They ask for really good game masters, or let's say staff. They don't want to be in front of a safe get machine, because still VR is something so immersive and personal. Like a trip, and they always look for trip sitters. They don't want to get thrown into VR and coming out of VR, and then there's nobody to talk to. And it is really part of this, part of the VR business at the moment, that it needs so much personal help, personal service.
Yep, absolutely. It's and that's going to get better over time as the equipment gets easier to use and people become more familiar with it. We're already seeing kids coming in and saying, "Oh, I saw this on YouTube, and I want to play this particular game," and they already know how to do it and they know the strategies and everything. And so I think we'll see that's going to get easier over time. So anyway, I put a link to the website if you guys want to learn more about Huxley. There's a link to the website there. And my guess is Sven answers all the emails personally. But if they want to reach out to you, Sven, how do we find you?
Me?
Yeah.
Sven at exit. I can write it. Sven at exit minus.
And are you going to be at any shows coming up in America? What's your next? Were you just at the exit there was a big escape room show in Amsterdam this week, right? Did you go to that?
Yeah. I not personal, but some of our team is there. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, we hope that we can. So our big plans are to be in Paris.
Okay. At IAPA.
Yes, and then in Orlando.
Okay. Cool.
With our new turnkey system, or let's say with our new system, which you can easily build up.
Well, I look forward to playing it in Paris. I'll be there, and so make sure you save me a slot, and I'll let you guys know what I think about Huxley 2. And yeah, I want to thank you for joining. Let's keep the conversation going. If you're on the Facebook group, if you're not on the Facebook group, go ahead and join the mentoring group. And we can continue the conversation there. And then make sure you keep an eye out for the replay, share it with your friends, and let's see who's coming up next week. I should probably know this, right? Let's see who is coming up next week. Is it Randy White? I think it's Randy White. So from White Hutchinson, who's one of the top analysts and consultants in the out of location-based entertainment industry. And he's going to be bringing stats and data. He's a data guy. He's got the best data of anybody I know. He's been in the industry 30 years. And he's going to be bringing trends and data. So come in next week, bring your questions. If you're writing a business plan, definitely tune in. He knows all the meta trends, both on the consumer standpoint, the industry standpoint, what people are looking for. So I hope to see you guys all next week. Sven, thanks for joining, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll see you in Paris, if not sooner.
Yeah, hopefully sooner.
All right, my friend. Talk to you later. See you next week, everybody. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.